So I'll wait for people to show up. Just skip ahead. All right, so I figured something else out, and it is the fact that Tom Grant is covering for Cali and Courtney with this whole going over the second note, the note that was found on the stairs inside the house. And I just want to play a clip regarding that.
Sit down, because I had handwriting experts that were telling me that that note I found on the stairs was written by a woman and sort of describing Courtney's character and everything. And I was having a hard time believing that. It didn't add up, because she would have had to fly up there and fly back, fly up there and fly back in order to do that. And so I had Cali come in, and the main purpose in having him come in was to test his handwriting. I gave him a felt tip pen and a piece of paper.
So that handwriting on the stairs is most definitely Courtney's handwriting and not Callie's. And she wouldn't need Callie to write it if she was at if she was at the house on Thursday the 7th, which she was. So it is totally Courtney and Tom covering that up with Callie. Again, we'll play that once more.
Sit down, because I had handwriting experts that were telling me that that note I found on the stairs was written by a woman and sort of describing Courtney's character and everything. And I was having a hard time believing that. It didn't add up, because she would have had to fly up there and fly back, fly up there and fly back in order to do that. And so I had Cali come in, and the main purpose in having him come in was to test his handwriting. I gave him a felt tip pen and a piece of paper.
And again, I just want to go over that. The handwriting on the stairs is most definitely Courtney's handwriting, just like the handwriting experts say, and they actually nail her personality down to a T. And it is not Callie's. That is Callie and Tom covering for Courtney, who was there on Thursday the 7th with Tom and Callie and Courtney and Dylan. So Tom right here. So Tom and Callie right here are literally covering for Courtney. Courtney being there on the 7th, Thursday, a day before the body was found. Again, we're referencing Maureen Herman, Babes in Toyland. That time she got high with Dylan, and Dylan admitted to finding the body with Courtney.
Came really close to exactly what was written in that letter, and sure enough, you hold that up, because I made copies of the letter on the stair. I left the letter there. Came really close to exactly what was written.
So, if you could only see this, the second letter that Callie wrote, he went to Tom's office to prove if it was him that wrote the second note. And he wrote for Tom Grant the same kind of thing to see if it looked the same. And it does not look like his handwriting, even though Tom wants to say that and dismiss what the handwriting experts are actually saying. The women handwriting experts are right. And it's definitely written by a woman. And that's Courtney, because she was there on Thursday, April 7th, as we know, because of Dylan ratting himself out, and Tom and Mark and Callie and Courtney to Maureen Herman from Babes in Toyland Toyland when they got high together. Even though Tom Grant wants to dismiss their findings. So he is definitely gatekeeping. There's just more and more evidence that points to that. Again, I want to go over that first part. So the handwriting on the stairs inside Kurt's house most definitely looks like Courtney's handwriting and not Callie's. And she wouldn't need Callie to write it if she was at the house on Thursday the 7th, which Courtney was. So it is totally Courtney covering up for Tom covering up for Courtney right here, but really Courtney and Tom covering this up with Callie. And we'll go over it once more.
Sit down, because I had handwriting experts that were telling me that that note I found on the stairs was written by a woman and sort of describing Courtney's character and everything. And I was having a hard time believing that. It didn't add up, because she would have had to fly up there and fly back, fly up there and fly back in order to do that. And so I had Kelly come in, and the main purpose in having him come in was to test his handwriting. I gave him a felt tip pen and a piece of paper.
Yeah, so that means, because if you look at it, Callie is trying to mimic the second letter on the stairs, but he can't do it completely correctly. You can see it's a different person trying to be sneaky and manipulative in the way they're writing, because it's not the same writing that was on the stairs, the second note. The second note is Courtney's writing. That's Callie, an ex-boyfriend, F-buddy, trying to cover for her. That's literally what that is, with Tom. Because that note literally looks like it. He's literally dismissing the fact that that is Courtney's handwriting, the second letter on the stairs. And he is conspiring with Callie and Courtney with having Callie write this sample of what looked like the second letter on the stairs. They wouldn't even need to do this. Why are they doing that? They're only pointing this out, the second letter, and getting someone to see if it looks like they're writing, because he wants to prove that Courtney wasn't there for some reason. There's no reason to say that when they knew Callie was there. Obviously, they're just fucking defending Courtney. If you look at the sample of the second note, the example that Callie wrote for Tom in the office, it's totally not the same handwriting. He's trying to make it look like it is. But Courtney didn't need Callie to do that since she was there on Thursday the 7th. Not the day of the murder or after. But yes, after, on Thursday, she did show up with Tom and Mark and Callie and Dylan. So even Courtney is trying to spread misinformation by twisting it. Like, I couldn't have flown down there on the date of the murder and everything. And she didn't. But she did on Thursday the 7th. So that would have been like almost 4 days after the murder, with Tom and Mark and Dylan. Mark and Dylan were already down there. And so was Callie. He is covering with her in a very sneaky way. And that's what Courtney's all about, actually. So makes sense. I'm gonna keep going over that.
East of the Rockies,
Actually,
Joe in Kentucky.
If I can find a Tom Grant interview, I can totally understand everything now correctly.
Love, when you first
Let's see. Right here.
Pressure I gained.
Not right there. Let's go with the Tom Grant interview from 1994.
Strange. Let me ask you another question here before we get, and I want to get into the whole story, and I want you to be able to tell this from scratch, and I want to tell it kind of in chronological order so people understand where all this is coming from. But here's the thing that really gets to me here, okay, and that is this. You see one persona, you watch television, you read Spin or Rolling Stone, you see a particular side of...
She spends most of her waking hours on the telephone to various media people, radio stations, magazines. She plants stories herself in the press. She has her friends or close friends plant stories in the press for her.
And that's what Tom is doing.
Painting the picture that she wants to have painted, basically.
And that is what Tom is doing for her. And this is 1994, actually.
I think that's how the public has been misled throughout this entire thing. We can talk about that later, but I've recorded and documented just countless articles from magazines that I've read that I can establish have been planted by Courtney and her friends.
Now,
yeah, double talk right there, just like what you're doing for her.
We're talking about motives for conspiring to either commit murder or to engage people to commit murder. That is and I want to say this right up top before we get to the whole story.
I just want to point this out too, to clear up the confusion about Mark and Tom and Courtney being there. They weren't there on the day of the murder. They were there on Thursday, April 7th. Dylan ratted himself out and the rest of them to Maureen Herman from Babes in Toyland when he was getting high with her.
In its chronological order. That is a very serious allegation. Are you concerned about making...
Which would also mean that Tom and Courtney and Eric possibly were staging the greenhouse the day before they knew with most certainty that the body would be discovered. Because remember, Courtney called the electrician, wanting him to go there on April 5th, Tuesday, but he didn't. He had to reschedule for Friday, April 8th. So they knew with most certainty that they had another day to get away with making sure the crime scene was okay before the media really put their eyes on it.
That allegation here, knowing that we're talking about big law firms, big record companies, big American corporations involved here. Are you concerned at all about coming on national radio? There's a television crew here and making this allegation against Courtney Love and Michael DeWitt?
Of course he is, because he's conspiring with them.
Well, I don't know if I could say that I'm concerned. I feel like I'm doing what I have to do. I'm convinced this is a murder and it was not a suicide. I think I was used as part of the scheme in this whole thing.
See, more double talk from Tom. And this is an interview from 1994 with Tom.
I think at least one other person possibly has been murdered here after Kurt died.
Kristen?
I believe, well, we know for a fact that several of Kurt's fans.
That was Kristen Paff. And Courtney with Eric discovered her body too and arranged that scene. So there's another similar event. And from Kristen's journal, there were pages ripped out from the week that Kurt had died. And after, probably.
That several of Kurt's fans have committed suicide, thinking it was a cool thing to do. I've raised a family myself, and that horrifies me, the thought that my child might do something like that because of something that didn't even happen.
Uh-huh.
I tried going to the police with this. They seemed determined to make it a suicide, no matter what I had to tell them. I don't feel I have any option except for to make this information public.
Like Don Cameron, who was a Freemason and corrupt officer. Corrupt, just like Tom. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they were on the same side of things all along. But he's dead now.
that the Seattle Police Department will eventually reopen the case.
Yeah,
You worked for Courtney Love. Do you still work for
sure
Courtney
you
Love?
do. Yeah.
I haven't had any recent assignments from her, and I don't expect I will. But as of just a couple of months ago, I was still doing work for her.
Why?
I have a letter here that
Oh, they covered that too. Oh, I think Courtney was just trying to mislead me and get me away from thinking or focusing on the case. That's a nice cover too.
you wrote to Courtney Love, and I'm going to read it on the air since you provided it to me. It's dated May 8th, 1990.
But I gotta say this. That's enough. That's a nice cover too, Courtney, Tom, and Cali.
And here is the letter. This is from Tom Grant. His company is called The Grant Company, and it's based in Beverly Hills. It says, Dear Courtney, I'm sure you know by now that my investigation has been somewhat more active than you might have been aware of. The purpose of this letter...
Some more back talk. Now I'm seeing everything clearly. Now that I know that Maureen Herman statement from Dylan when he was high with her.
is to clarify my position regarding our working relationship. You may recall our trip to Carnation on Thursday, April 14th. I mentioned during the drive that I was beginning to turn over some rocks that I wasn't sure you'd want turned over. I asked if you wanted me to continue digging. Kat? Who's Kat?
That's Kat. I'm not sure how to pronounce the last name. Pajeelan.
Isn't she another band member from Babes in Toyland?
I believe it is BJELLAND of Babes in Toyland.
Kat, who...
And remember, Maureen Herman from Babes in Toyland, the same band. I think their name is based on a movie that Drew Barrymore was in back in the day. But anyway, Dylan got high with Maureen and told her that Courtney and himself found the body a day before it was discovered, which was April 8th, Friday. So that means that it was Thursday, April 7th, that they found the body, which is the same day that Tom flew down and went to the house of Mark and Dylan. So that means that whole circle of people are there at the same time at the house and greenhouse.
in the back seat said, oh yeah, she wants to know everything. You responded, yeah, Tom, do whatever it takes. I want to know everything that happened. Your instructions were clear. So in the days and weeks that followed, I proceeded to, quote, do whatever it takes, end quote. As the investigation continued, my attempts to get at the truth often seemed to be deliberately hindered. While reading some of the articles being written in newspapers and magazines, I discovered the
More bullshit by Tom.
information being released to the press was inaccurate and often cleverly misleading. I consider the circumstances
More double talk by Tom. This is again an interview from 1994.
surrounding your husband's death to be highly suspicious. My investigation has exposed a number of inconsistencies in the facts of this case, as well as many contradictions in sound logic and common sense. I'm required to report findings such as these to the police. So on Friday...
He is totally fixing the situation and gatekeeping for it. Not gatekeeping the evidence and blackmailing them. He is literally gatekeeping the crime, like them getting in trouble for the crime and himself getting in trouble for the staging of the crime. And obviously more, since we know they were connected before April 3rd, Sunday.
April 15th, I spoke with Sergeant Cameron, I guess he's with the Seattle Police Department,
Yes.
about some of what I've learned so far. As I've experienced in past cases, police detectives don't often welcome...
Oh, Detective Cameron. Yeah, exactly. That confirms my suspicions about Detective Cameron. The same kind of person like Tom that would do things that are illegal, that they're not supposed to do, and would try to cover them up.
the work of outside investigators. I've learned it's somewhat idealistic and naive to think the truth might be more important than professional pride. I've decided to continue working on this case until I see it to its conclusion without additional charge. Attached.
So this is basically his way of explaining why he's still going to work with Courtney Love free of charge, apparently.
We'll find an invoice which accounts for the charges billed for our services, including time and expenses. As you can see, prior to my return to Seattle on April 13th, these charges exceeded the retainer amount. However, please consider your bill paid in full. There will be no further charges. As I pursue the truth regarding the events surrounding your husband's death, your cooperation and assistance will be appreciated, but not required. Sincerely, Tom Grant, the
I don't need to work with you, but I can.
Grant Company. Did you get a response to this letter?
Well, of course, I expected an angry response, knowing Courtney. I didn't hear anything for about a week, and then all of a sudden I got a phone call from her, and she asked me to do some other work for her, completely unrelated to this job.
And he's going to explain it away again. I think she's trying to get me to not focus on the Cobain case. I think you're covering for yourself and Courtney and why you're still working with her.
And our relationship for the past several months, nearly 8 months after this, continued along those lines. Whenever I started homing in on the Cobain incident, I would usually get more work from Courtney. I felt most of the time it was just in order to detract me from the case, and possibly maybe she felt she was paying me off somehow.
And she is. I'm going to link the In Bloomer video of Maureen right here. Just a second. Let's see where that is. Here is that in the this comment section. Dylan ratting on himself to Maureen Herman was the best thing and the best piece of information that I've gotten that just confirms everything else and makes everything else make sense.
Our guest is private investigator Tom Grant of Beverly Hills, California. He alleges, and we're going to get the details of why he believes this. He alleges that Kurt Cobain of Nirvana did not commit suicide, that he was murdered. And the principal conspirators, according to Tom, were Kurt's wife, Courtney Love, and their male nanny, Michael DeWitt.
So these two people and Tom are conspiring together, and they're leaving out Mark Lanigan, who's the main person in this. Not even Dylan. The main person that attacked Kurt is Mark Lanigan. So that makes sense, too, as to why Tom Grant is covering Mark Lanigan's face in that photo of him looking into Kurt's vehicle in front of Chris's house. Why it's all blurred out. Why he removes Mark Lanigan from the house search in the beginning of the Soaked in Bleach movie. It all makes perfect sense now that Dylan ratted on all of them.
We're going to talk a little bit more with Tom. We're going to find out exactly what he knows and what he believes about this case, and you'll have a chance to talk with him as well. It's 19 minutes after the hour. My name is Tom Likas.
Just a second. Skip
Opportunity. The Seattle.
Today for a free cut.
Oh, fuck.
Today's cold open dealt with Farley's.
Strange. Nice weekdays, noon to 3.
A variety show.
Tom Grant says that Kurt Cobain of Nirvana did not commit suicide. He says that Kurt Cobain was murdered. We're going to get the whole his story or you don't, whether you accept his motives for doing it. We're going to read some of the, and their male nanny eventually succeeded in killing Kurt Cobain. Now, is that an opinion or is that a fact?
Well, of course, that's my opinion until it's proven.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
Until it's proven, and it won't be because there's more people here, like the one person you're leaving out, Mark Lanigan.
that Courtney's personality may be described by reporters and writers as flamboyant, loquacious, frivolous, and provocative. But Courtney uses her baby doll appearance, her rambling oratories, and her sometimes outrageous behavior to cover a host of
He's literally controlling the situation while making himself look to be like a hero for this case. I see it now, and that's all because of you, Dylan, ratting on your own self. So in doing that, you ratted on Tom and Courtney and Cali and everyone else.
logical problems. As an investigator looking for answers to a mysterious death, I viewed Courtney from an entirely different perspective than most. I found Courtney Love, again, I'm reading from this page prepared by our guest, Tom Grant. I found Courtney Love to be extremely intelligent. She's also a psychopath, a pathological liar, and an opportunist who will use anyone and any situation to self-promote her ambitious goals of fame and fortune.
You know what's kind of freaky, and I just thought about it right now? Those conversations I had over the phone with Tom Grant. Hello, Tom's people. He told me people were checking out my stuff and sending him stuff that I was doing. So it's kind of freaky thinking he could be here right now listening. Those other YouTubers that he has working with him, they don't understand what I've connected. I hope they watched this video from the start to the end and that they click that link in the comment section about Dylan Carlson admitting to Maureen Herman from Babes in Toyland that him and Courtney found Kurt's body on Thursday, April 7th, the day before the body was found, the day before Courtney certainly knew that the body was going to be found on April 8th, Friday, by Gary Smith, because she had called Gary Smith and she wanted him to go to the house on Tuesday, April 5th, but he couldn't. He had to reschedule for Friday, April 8th. She knew most certainly the body would be found the next day. She had time. Did you notice Courtney's drawings? Look them up. They're all about her being in a red dress around a chaotic scene involving death and witchcraft. Look that up. Tom is gatekeeping for the case, whether you like him or not. Yep, and he was there. He just wasn't there on the date of the murder on Sunday. He was there on Thursday, April 7th, 1994, with Courtney Love, possibly Eric Erlandson, but definitely Dylan, and Cali, and Mark Lanigan. Thank you, Teddy East. Thank you. Thank you for that. We just have to get this information out there because this is the information, this is the exact information that they're going to try to cover up because they are already doing that. So this is the information that either Tom is going to get people to laugh at and dismiss, or they're going to try to take it further, and I hope they don't. Shit. And Tom knows where I live, too. That's not good. Because I sent him my court documents with the Sarah Silverman legal case, and they have my address on it and my apartment. Maybe I shouldn't remind him if he's listening. Shit. Back to this.
No, I'm not a psychologist. Courtney's unbalanced mental condition is so obvious that I don't believe it takes someone with a degree in psychology to identify the problem. The media may see Courtney as a person who is interesting. I see Courtney as a person who is dangerous. He then has some quotes. One is from Us Magazine, August 1994. I finally said, I'm not on this earth to blank, it's an F word, a rock star. I'm here to be a rock star.
Sorry. The murderers in this case are stupid junkies. There's no way they could get away with this. The only reason they've gotten away with it is because of Tom Grant. And I think Rosemary Carroll figured that out, and that's probably why she stopped speaking to Tom, like, completely. Not because of the recorded phone calls. I think she suspects him. Wow, wait. Mind me as I am in deep thought about this. Which would also explain Chris saying about Tom Grant, I fucking hate that guy. So those of you standing up or that are working for Tom, helping him with this, it would be better to be on the side of Kurt Cobain's best friend, not Tom Grant. Especially if you go over this live stream and the information that I have literally put together. We've all uncovered it, but I've put the pieces together to really understand what has happened. And even though it was so long ago, I actually fucking did it. We did it. I just put the fucking pieces together. Dylan ratting on himself was the information I needed. But that's bad. I mean, Tom Grant knows my apartment number, where I live. And he was there on Thursday with Courtney. Just a second. I'm going to try to share my screen eventually. I just gotta find what I'm looking for. Let me see. One moment. Yeah, and now that we know he's gatekeeping for it, hopefully Tom just makes people laugh about it. Because I gotta move. Second. Let's see, I'm gonna share my screen somehow. I'll go with the entire screen. Do you guys see that? Do you see this? Is this fine? I want to go over this. Look, right here. Here's one of her drawings of being in a red dress. Oh my God. That finger right there. I just all blistered in blue. That fucking finger right there. That would be Mark Lanigan. If I'm correct, I think that's what that's pointing out, and that looks like smoke. You guys see that? Did you see that? John Best, I think I'm correct. Do you see that? All blistered in blue. This would be Mark Lanigan and Courtney dancing around the body. Holy fucking shit. That's correct. I'm going to go on my phone so I see the comments on this part. This is crazy. Wow. Wow. That is fucked up. That's right there. The finger, all blistered in blue. And there's more. I would really love to be able to read what that's on my phone. That one right there is so telling, though. Here's a bigger picture of it. All blistered in blue. I thought it was the right finger, but that body was facing this direction, and he would have shot right from here. On the left side of him from here. Wow. This looks like a kind of fireplace thing. Courtney was there Thursday, April 7th. Holy shit. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. We're going to keep going over. We're going to keep going over that interview with Tom. Second. That's not good. So we've really uncovered Courtney was there. Mark was, obviously, because that finger in that photo, all blistered in blue, blue smoke coming off it. There's another find. I'll be making a video about that. Holy shit. Okay, here we go.
I would create myself. Another quote says, brilliant, yes, but a rock star, Kurt, no. I was going to be the more famous than the two of us. This is conversation with Tom Grant. Was this a conversation where you are quoting Courtney here on April 3rd?
Yes, this is a phone conversation I had with her.
Yeah, it was mainly Mark Lanigan. Courtney was there on Thursday, the 7th, days after Kurt was already dead. She wasn't there when Kurt was murdered.
It says here, in my world, people are pretty scared of me, so they don't blank with me. Rolling Stone does it.
Yeah, he was trying to unload, and he wanted to do the same thing with Maureen Herman, and I'm glad he did. And I'm glad that he said a little more than he was, than he probably wishes he ever did. Oh man. That means I really have to move though, because Tom and Courtney would know exactly where I live. Because Tom has my address. Okay, I'll be right back. I'm going to put on a piece of music. I'm just gonna get a cigarette to roll with my joint. And we're going right back to this. A second. This music is going to stop before I come back. Just a second. So I'll be back in like 2 minutes. I'm going to see if I can play one of these things in the meantime. After I get past a bunch of ads, of course. All right, back to the podcast of peace. I have to stop freaking out on people. Anyway, let's go back to that with Tom Grant. This interview is from 1994. Just a second.
With me. Rolling Stone, December 15th, 1994. My goal keeps me alive. But if you think you're going to stop me from going where I'm going, you're not going to do it. And another quote said, my thing is, don't blank with me in real life, real life. Another quote from Entertainment Weekly, August 12th, 1994. On America Online, to those trying to exploit Kurt's death, I'm on fire, you blankers. Be afraid, be very blanking afraid. Now, tell us how this ties into what we're talking about.
Well, it ties into Courtney's personality and the motive.
Right? And the lie goes so deep. It's not just Kurt Cobain was murdered and they're trying to say it was suicide. It's also that they're covering it up while trying to make it look like they're investigating it, or some people are trying to investigate it. Meanwhile, the police aren't. The people pretending to investigate it are the people that staged the crime scene and are staging the cover-up.
And her vindictiveness, her goals and ambitions in life, and the fact that, like I said, I think she is a psychopath. I don't think she has much feeling or emotion for anybody or anything. I took those quotes, and of course I've been following.
Good job, Tom. You seem like you're against her. That's good. You probably are, but you're still involved.
She's what I've seen of Courtney, and I've been reading numerous and countless articles and magazines, and have developed what I consider to be a pretty accurate psychological profile, although I don't claim to be an expert.
Right? Just like, well, look at like this. Tom didn't do the murder. He wasn't there that day. They were there on Thursday, April 7th. But Mark and Dylan, they did. Mainly Mark. And Mark felt sad. So, of course, Tom does too. Like, I see that in him. I believe that. But at the same time, he's stuck in what he did in 1994.
In that field, and I'll leave that for other people.
Let's talk a little bit about, and because we're taking a break here in about a minute, and I don't want to interrupt you in the middle of anything, but just to clarify here, to say that somebody is, you think, psychotic, and to say they're involved in a murder, those are two very different things.
Psychopath, first of all.
No, a psychopath. And is that's a big jump.
Yeah, sure. And for probably seven months or so, when I was only at about an 80 to 90% level of assurance on this whole thing, I was hoping that I would find out that she didn't kill him. And I was hoping that we could continue to be friends and I could continue to work with her, because I don't judge people just because they have a problem, and I find her interesting too. But once I had reached my conclusion that she actually had Kurt murdered, my concern for Courtney ended.
And remember, Tom knew all along. He was there on Thursday, April 7th in the greenhouse with Courtney and Dylan and Mark. And we know that because Dylan ratted on himself to Maureen Herman from Babes in Toyland.
A scale of 1 to 100%, how sure are you of this claim?
Well, in my mind, I'm 100% sure.
We're talking with private investigator Tom Grant of Beverly Hills, California. He says Kurt Cobain did not commit suicide. He says he believes Kurt Cobain.
This is literally Courtney's cover-up. The people that did the crime, well, the people who did the staging of the crime, Courtney, Tom, Cali, Mark, Dylan, they're still the ones alive. Everyone except for Mark are still doing this cover-up. They're twisting things. Just like with the Isaac case that I'm unfortunately involved. I unfortunately got involved in years back. It's the same thing. They're twisting known facts about the case. That's the misinformation, disinformation. The crime, basically, like, I don't know if that I can say this confidently, but the crime is as big and as bad as the cover-up. I say that because, you know, what happened to Kurt is a lot worse, but if you look at it like that, it's the same thing. Yep, that tape, I mean, on the 7th, Thursday, April 7th, of him with Mark and Dylan calling out Kurt's name was definitely to cover his ass. Kurt? It sounded phony as fuck too. I just I just mimicked them the exact way that they were saying it. You see how phony that sounded? Kurt? Hello? That second one right there, yeah. No wonder, you know, the polygraph wasn't, you know, oh my gosh. It could have been solved a long time ago, but I'm glad that Joe came out about Mark Lanigan's name, about Mark Lanigan's involvement. That was the missing piece we needed. And Dylan admitting to Maureen Herman when they got high together that him and Courtney seen the body a day before the police did. As well as Harvey catching Dylan on his lie about being in the limo. They obviously, I believe, planted those shells on Kurt, and that was going to be a bad media spin for Kurt, and he would have to go back home where they were going to kill him. Unfortunately, Kurt left Los Angeles, and he shouldn't have done that. But he was still being surveilled by Tom Grant, that means, and Courtney, who were also in Los Angeles. So still, if he got away and it didn't play out the way it did in 1994, they would have still been going after him, after Kurt. Tom Grant, Courtney, with the help of the nanny, unfortunately. Unfortunately, Kurt was right. Everybody, like, close to him in his house were against him. Except for Joe and Bonnie and Jennifer. Cali has more involvement. He's not completely innocent, especially with that cover letter with Tom Grant in his office, covering for Courtney Love being there and putting the letter there herself. I feel like Bam Margera could look at this and he's easily fucking understand what fucking happened. The only reason these junkies got away with this is because they have one person that's being kind of rational about the situation, but helping direct them around being caught for it. And he was in on the staging as well on April 7th, 1994, in the greenhouse, as well as staging of the phone calls before that. And they got to work pretty quick on that fucking cover-up. Okay, let's go back to Tom's bullshit from 1994. This is a 1994 interview.
Cobain was murdered. In fact, he says, from his mind, he's 100% sure of it. We will continue.
The Tom Likas Show.
Good afternoon. I'm Karen Anderson with a Cairo FM update. House Speaker Newt Gingrich is trying to set an upbeat and conciliatory tone. He told the House Ways and Means Committee that Republicans will reach out to Democrats, and there may be some sign of flexibility on changes
We're gonna have to skip all this.
in the tax laws. Gingrich said, into Snohomish.
Oh, you're in the driveway?
Down there, so let's take our...
Devin, what a stupid... Low, Dr. Laura, or Tom. We understand exactly what happened, right from the beginning of your involvement here.
Okay, well, let me mention a couple of things right before my involvement that we had learned during the investigation. Courtney and Kurt hadn't been getting along very well. On and off, they'd been talking about divorce. Within weeks before Kurt died,
Sorry, Jack, are you here? That discovery with Courtney's drawing of her in the red dress and someone standing in front of her with a finger all blistered and blue with smoke coming off of it. Holy shit. That just confirms everything even more. That we're going with, I got to give myself credit on this channel with the audience. And your name is just as important as mine. That's since we're finally uncovering this together, what really happened. I mean, El Duce got killed over this, and like, look at what we know.
He called one of their attorneys named Rosemary Carroll and asked her to find the meanest, most vicious divorce lawyer she could find. Courtney also asked,
all we have to do, because I realized it the other day, all you have to do is put out like an article with a Daily Mail or some other big site, and all these YouTubers will see that because they search for the news on Google for trending news about certain topics. So if they see one article about Kurt Cobain or whatever, like 300 YouTubers are going to pick it up and do a video about it. So we got to use that in our advantage. I'm doing that right now with Harvey and Joe together. I'm trying to work out an interview with Harvey and Joe and myself on a big platform. Hopefully Sean Atwood. If that doesn't work, then something else. Right now, we're just going for an article altogether with all the information that we have that Joe's okay about putting out, and Harvey as well.
Asked Rosemary if the prenuptial agreement could be voided. Kurt called Rosemary later also. He hadn't completed his will, and he told Rosemary that he wanted Courtney taken out of. I don't know how much longer my voice is going to hang on.
I understand. Take it easy.
He told Rosemary that he wanted Courtney taken out of the will. Kurt didn't want to perform anymore, like I mentioned before. That was his main thing.
He wanted to drop out of the music.
Yeah, exactly. He wanted
to be away from the A-lister celebrities that are online nowadays with their blue checkmark profiles on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, showing off their great lifestyle to everybody. Kurt was the exact opposite of those people and their influence, which is what everyone is stuck with these days, unless they go like an indie route or, they like music where people are just different, like the grunge scene, like the L7 chicks are cool.
Left alone. He just didn't want to be out there in front of large audiences and on a tour bus driving all over. Again, he was walking away from a $9.5 million deal, according to Courtney. And Courtney was very upset at that. If anybody that knows these two people knows that Courtney is just the opposite of Kurt, and she's very involved with material things and wants to make as much money as she can. She blamed Kurt's attitude on dropping out. Here it is, drug use, and claimed that was the primary reason. And if he could just kick drugs, then everything would probably be all right. She put on this intervention that a lot of people have heard about. And of course, when that's looked into and you learn that there were several of Kurt's best friends there that were junkies that did drugs with him on a regular basis, it kind of makes the intervention.
Since Tom is involved in the cover-up since April 3rd, Sunday, maybe it would be interesting if possibly he was in on that intervention too, like on a phone call. He at least knew about it before.
Going to look like a farce. I'm not sure of the real purpose of that intervention. I know that Courtney claims that she told Kurt at the intervention.
Courtney is in the Epstein BB files.
Mentioned that this has got to end, and you've got to be a good dad. Excuse me.
A good dad?
A good daddy.
Yeah.
It seemed like a pretty phony statement because, as I've said, I continue to work with Courtney over the next several months, and Courtney has continued to do some pretty heavy drugs during that period of time herself. So it seems strange that she was so concerned about Kurt's drug use. You're gonna have to.
I'll tell you what. All right, I'll tell you. He's going to take a sip of his tea here because Tom is working under extraordinary conditions with laryngitis, which just happened yesterday, and I know because I just spent a week with laryngitis.
By the way, this interview with Tom is taking place in 1994.
So I understand where he's coming from. We will get to your telephone calls, by the way. The phones are ringing off the hook, but not until Tom has had a chance to explain all of the information and all of the background that he has here.
No, Harvey, the limo driver, And Joe and I, we're putting together an article with everything that Joe's okay with putting out already, and Harvey. I'm working on that with them. And I'm trying to get an interview set up with both of them and myself on it, so we can try to get, what we're going to do is just go with media attention, media hype. We just have to fucking keep doing that. At least do it with the truth. At least do it with explaining that Mark Lanigan was there and everything that the eyewitness is saying. Don't just say, hi, this is my name and this is what I believe, and some people I gathered on YouTube found this. Talk about Joe Burns and Harvey. Those are the people involved in the case that should be all about the articles that are coming out currently. So that's why I'm trying to do that with them. Tom Grant is the private investigator and con artist that Courtney is friends with, also known as the fixer and handler of the case that pretends to be looking for justice for Kurt, but dismisses all the eyewitness claims and everybody involved in it, and puts out misinformation and disinformation about the case with Cali and Courtney. Here we go.
What few people realize is that Kurt purchased this shotgun on March 30th before he went to rehab. And then he took the shotgun to his house and he left it there, and he came down to the rehab in Marina Del Rey. On Friday, April 1st, a couple of days later, 16 telephone calls were made to Kurt's rehab center from Courtney's hotel room. Most of these phone calls are to the patient's payphone.
Yeah, Harvey drove Kurt to Exodus Rehab that same day. Well, he didn't drive him to the rehab, sorry. He drove him to the airport, and Kurt got on an airplane. He almost missed his flight, but he realized there were shells in his bag. He was really shocked about it. I believe he didn't plant them in there at all, and somebody else at the house did. And he almost missed the flight, which would have meant he had to go just right back home, where he was killed anyway 2 days later. I believe that's what they wanted to happen. They wanted him to go back and just get it done there. They didn't suspect Kurt would leave a day or two later after being in LA, after Harvey drove him to the airport in Seattle to get on the plane. March 30th, 1994. Yeah.
To the patient's payphone at the rehab center.
Yeah, that's right. Later that evening, on April 1st, Kurt left the rehab at 8:57. Let me just ask you to read a couple of those lines until I get.
All right. This comes from Tom.
I feel like every night here is going to be a new reveal, since we actually have put a lot of pieces together. Thanks to Dylan ratting them all out, and what Joe has told us, and Harvey.
Notes here. Where are we picking up here now?
8:57.
8:57 p.m. that evening. Kurt leaves a message for Courtney at the Peninsula Hotel. Kurt arrives in Seattle early Saturday morning and is taken to his house on Lake Washington.
Oh, here comes Tom, ready to cover for Courtney. Prepare yourselves.
By a hired driver. Saturday night, Courtney plans a story with AP through a friend that she had overdosed on drugs and was in the hospital.
No, this is not really the police. And Don Cameron, he would have been in it with Tom Grant as well, I really believe. It would have just been certain corrupt individuals, just like Neil Lowe was saying in his book, Crazy Love.
Sunday,
These investigators.
April 3rd. These are Tom Grant's notes. Courtney calls my office in Beverly Hills and tells me someone is using her husband's credit card, and she's trying to find out who it is. I take another investigator with me named Ben Klugman. We meet Courtney in her hotel room. Now she tells us her husband is missing. She says she lied to the credit card company and had his card canceled. She says he only has that one credit card, and without that he has no access to money. She says he doesn't have any friends that would loan him money. This doesn't...
If Kurt canceled the cards, I don't really see him doing that. Well, maybe, yeah, because of Courtney, but why would they need to cover that up since Tom and Courtney are already allowing the fact to get out there that Kurt was divorcing her and taking the money and everything away from her? I think she did that to lure him back to the house because they really couldn't find him. That stays the same about Tom Grant on Sunday. I mean, no, it does not. Actually, yes, it does. Tom was still in his office in LA at that time. That was April 3rd. So can anyone just remind me what I was just saying about Tom? Maybe playing this back will remind me.
Makes sense. He's famous and he's a millionaire. This is Tom. She says he doesn't have any friends that would loan him money.
Fuck, I had it right there in my mind. Oh, shit. On Saturday, Courtney couldn't really find him. Cali did see him and told her, but then Kurt took off again after he was already back at the house from leaving LA when he was back in Seattle. So they were genuinely looking for him that day. Not on Sunday or any other day after. They were looking for him on Saturday. That's why Courtney canceled the cards right then. And apparently is telling Tom about it the next day on April 3rd, Sunday. There we go. That all comes from the deep dive of my own brain with all this knowledge. Dylan Carlia. So, let me think a little deeper. She canceled the cards on that day. Kurt would have came back. That's when it was done by Mark. Tom and Courtney weren't there on that day, but they sure were on the 7th, the day before the body was found. We know that thanks to Maureen Herman from the band Babes in Toyland.
This doesn't make sense. He's famous and he's a millionaire. This is Tom's notes here. We question her on this, and she continues to insist this guy can't even catch a cab by himself. Courtney impresses me, I'm reading from the notes here, as a manipulative, controlling...
Dylan did. He accidentally, that pinned video here, right here in the comments will tell you, Dylan revealed to Maureen Herman from Babes in Toyland when they were getting high together that he and Courtney had discovered the body a day before the police did. And he started showing off to her by saying that he was the one that bought the gun for Kurt, and how did she not know that? Just like he has with many other people. But fortunately, in this situation, he told Maureen Herman more information than he would really want to say, than he would want to get out there. And it's not a fortunate situation at all because of what happened to Kurt, but it's after everything, it's the only thing that's good is them busting themselves. And him doing that busts Tom and Courtney and Cali and Mark and Dylan himself all in the same crime.
Person who's attempting to control her husband's every move.
And we know that because Tom Grant was flying over there on April 7th, 1994, and met with Dylan and Mark. And if Dylan's in the greenhouse on April 7th, Thursday, with Courtney, and he's with Tom as well on that date, they're all in on this.
She says she doesn't know where he is, but that he might be in Seattle.
And they knew that they had another day before the electrician, Gary Smith, would come. Because Courtney called him on Monday and wanted him to go on Tuesday, April 5th, to find the body. He didn't know that, of course, but Courtney did. But he had to reschedule for Friday, April 8th, which is why they were at the crime scene a day before. They knew they had time to stage it perfectly before the media got their hands on the case and started taking photos and sharing them on the news and everything else.
We learned later she'd been told Kurt had been to the Lake Washington house on Saturday morning. She asks us to set up a surveillance in Seattle. I subcontract for the surveillance with a PI firm in Seattle. Courtney asks us to watch 3 locations, but never their house on Lake Washington, the one place where Kurt had actually been seen. On Monday, April 4th.
Well, since we had the staging of the crime scene by Courtney and possibly Erica as well, and they were at the crime scene of Kristen Paff's, and journal entries of hers during the time of Kurt's death had been ripped out of her diary, I'm pretty sure those 2 people.
Where Courtney calls in a missing persons report, pretending to be Kurt's mom, Wendy O'Connor. The report says Kurt ran away from the rehab, bought a shotgun, and maybe...
You already know this, but for people listening for the first time, that was not Kurt's mom. That was Courtney Love setting it up after Kurt was already dead. She did this on Monday.
Suicidal. The report fails to mention Kurt was last seen at the house on April 2nd. Eric Erlandson comes into the hotel room and says, "You ought to go see your daughter." Courtney yells at him, "Don't you ever talk to me like that." And she goes on and on for about 20 minutes. I learned nobody even hints at criticizing Courtney without suffering her wrath. Now, is this all stuff you...
And so the wrath of Courtney is onto me, and everybody else would be coming from Tom, because whatever comes from Tom is coming from Courtney and Cali and Dylan. Was coming from Mark as well, but Mark died in 2022.
personally witnessed?
Yeah, it makes all sense now, all these pieces. It looked like misinformation and people changing their stories and everything. But when I put it all together, I was able to see how the puzzle actually fits.
I was in the room with Courtney when Eric came in and trying to carry on a conversation with her. And over that one little comment, she just went completely livid. Eric walked out of the room at one time, and Courtney followed him down the hall to the other room where the baby was. When she
I'll skip that.
Coming up, it's 19 minutes before.
Natural ester C is the most
Now we have to skip the commercials.
bioavailable form of vitamin C, yet it won't upset plant. I just don't hear it.
No, when we were first hired, I believe he was missing.
He was missing.
Yeah, I think Courtney was desperate.
He was missing. That was Saturday. He wasn't missing. He left the house after returning back from Los Angeles again.
Find him temporarily.
Temporarily, yeah.
There's more.
Exactly, Tom, right there. Temporarily, we'll find him. He was missing temporarily because he was found shortly after the credit cards were canceled on Saturday, April 2nd. He came back, and it happened early Sunday morning in the a.m., around 2 a.m. 2:32 a.m. exactly. Mark Lanigan revealed it in his last album that he collaborated on with Skeleton Joe. Please save this live stream after. It's really important. I put all the information out there together to make sense of it all. It wasn't people changing their stories. You had to put it all together with the exact dates of when those things happened. People aren't doing that.
Do this, in order to save my voice, I probably won't be able to cover right now, but I believe that a first attempt may have been planned for Saturday night, and somehow that didn't come off. And Sunday.
Oh, I believe that. That's why she canceled the cards. So it would have happened right there on Saturday if he got back early. So I think he must have came back around Sunday, probably around 12 or 1. Because if they tried on Saturday, but they wanted to, but he came back on Sunday, obviously they weren't able to kill him on Saturday. So he might have just come back shortly after, just like Hank said in his book. Kurt got back home around 2 a.m. or something. That makes sense. And then 2:32, he's dead. So he wouldn't have had long back at that home after. I mean, he was around during the day, even getting high with Joe and Bonnie, but he left, and Courtney really couldn't find him. That's why the cards were canceled.
Courtney was at least impressed with the idea that Kurt might have gotten away from Seattle and gone back east, and that's when she first hired us.
I really wish that he did. And then she hired him to help with the staging of the crime scene and the phone calls on April 3rd as well, right after he was killed. Tom Grant's the one that started speaking to her on the day Kurt was killed, Sunday.
Now, we get to the point where Kurt was found. Were there some discrepancies as to when he died, when people thought he died, when he was found? Were there discrepancies there?
Yeah, there were a lot of planted stories in the media by Courtney and her friends as to witnesses that had seen Kurt.
This is the information that's going to get out and needs to get out. And she canceled his cards on Saturday, April 2nd, sometime that day, after he left again. And apparently he left at around, I don't know.
And, at different times and different days. My contention is that Kurt died late Sunday night or early Monday morning, and I don't.
Late Sunday night is correct, but not correct enough. It was nighttime. It was dark, but it was Sunday. He's not saying the exact time. I think it would be stupid, since Tom is involved, to say the exact time when Kurt was killed.
I don't believe anybody actually saw him after early Monday morning. The
early Monday morning aligns with the fake stories that are out about Kurt Cobain. Tom Grant's narrative is aligning with more fake stories about Kurt Cobain. That comes from Courtney. And you realize that makes all the sense.
Coroner's report apparently states that he died sometime on Tuesday, give or take 12 hours. I think partially that was based on misinformation about witnesses.
Just a second, I'm going to get some more water. That really means that we have a bunch of co-conspirators in murder just on the internet, browsing freely still.
Having seen Kurt, but I think in the end, the evidence is going to conclude that he died sometime Sunday night or early Monday morning.
Now, if that evidence would conclude that, why would...
Sunday night, 2:32 a.m., trigger figure all blistered and blue, just like in that photo, too, of Courtney's own drawing, in a red dress, too, right in front of a person with a finger that is blistered and blue and has smoke coming off of it. And if you didn't see that, just go forward in this video and you'll see it. If you can. In the replay, you can.
The Seattle Police Department closed the case?
Well, that in itself wouldn't mean that it was a suicide or a murder, the fact of when he died.
Well, wouldn't that, in and of itself, at least would lead people to believe that something didn't smell right?
Well, I don't think it took a genius to see that something didn't smell right here. That's only.
But it took a genius to cover it up for them. And Courtney is that too, just like Hank Harrison was saying in his book that we listened to last night.
One of hundreds of details and facts about this case that didn't smell right from the beginning. And that's actually a minor detail as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you have any evidence, or do you know of any evidence that Courtney Love and Michael DeWitt were behind the murder of Kurt Cobain? Do you have any evidence of that at all?
Well, I want to make it clear that...
Oh, yes, he does. The interviewer should actually ask, do you have any evidence that Courtney and Cali and yourself, Tom, are involved in the staging of the scene, and that Courtney is involved in the actual murder happenings since she ordered it to happen?
I will never disclose all the information that I have. Mm-hmm. People will probably be surprised at how much I'm willing to disclose. And
PH Joy, exactly. Yeah, just put on the CC button and you'll see all the words pop up. I keep it like this while I do my studies. I should put something on the screen, but for now it's like this. It'll change in a bit. It'll change over time, I mean. But yeah, he returned home on Saturday or Sunday, or Saturday going into Sunday. And he was home earlier during that day, getting high with Joe and Bonnie and Jennifer. And so when he returned back late Saturday or early Sunday, around 2 a.m., and died about that time, when some people were invading his home, just like Mark Lanigan said in that song 2:32 a.m. Yeah, and not Monday. I was wrong. Sunday night 2:32 a.m. is not Monday. He's talking about it being nighttime and in the morning. So it was on Easter. But he wasn't found until Friday, yeah. Courtney wanted his body found 2 days later, on Tuesday, April 5th. But the electrician, Gary Smith, had to reschedule for Friday, April 8th. And so Courtney and Tom and Cali and Mark and Dylan, they all knew that they had another day to get things right with the crime scene and even clean the house before the media would make a big thing out of it, before the body would be found by the electrician that Courtney set up to do work on the house and the greenhouse, knowing that he would find Kurt's body in the greenhouse. So in Soaked in Bleach, when you watch that again, when they walk through the house, Tom and Dylan says, I've never noticed the place this clean before. They're basically putting it in our face to cover up. It was cleaned by those people. Tom, Mark, Dylan, and Mark should have been in that scene in Soaked in Bleach. And Courtney should have as well, now that we know this. Wow. So Soaked in Bleach should have started out with Dylan, Mark, Courtney, and Tom Grant all going to the house and staging the crime scene and walking through the house and cleaning it up and pretending to do a fake search for Kurt by saying, Kurt, 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 wait, Kurt, Kurt. Total bullshit. So they weren't there. I mean, Tom and Courtney weren't there on the date of the murder, April 3rd, 1994. But they were there on Thursday, April 7th, 1994. And I just put it together with one of Courtney Love's own drawings of her being in a red dress, ironically. And I really got to say it like that because I really want to stress it. It's serious to me too, but I really got to stress that. Yeah, soaked in bleach or not. There's so much disinformation in that. And now thinking back to Joe Rogan talking about it with Billy Corgan and them being against it, I see. They probably know the inside scoop as well. So they know what's going on right there. We don't. We're not supposed to, but we do now. Right, so it's like also not just the staging of the crime scene they're doing, it's like her coming up, like showing up for a date of death in a dress. She looks exactly like Kurt Cobain from behind. That's who Bonnie and Joe were seeing. Even if they're not aware of it or they don't want to say it. Courtney and Tom staging the crime scene with Dylan and possibly Eric Erlandson.
Although I'm going to disclose an awful lot of information, I'm still practically just scratching the surface here. This is really difficult to
I understand. I do.
Let me see if I can go through this real quickly so that people can have an understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If we had the budget to film it, that would be great. We could do that with AI. I would have to start with Tom Grant and Courtney making phone calls and staging them together in an obvious way. And then talking about going to the house on April 7th, a day before the electrician arrives, because Courtney called them. And then they talk about them having enough time to arrange the scene, make sure it's really good. Let's not just rely on Mark and Dylan and Cali to do that because they're all strung out. And then do that. And then have a scene where they're like working on a movie and be like collaborating with people trying to cover it up. The staging of the scene on the 7th. That's why Soaked in Bleach starts out with the house search. That's the fucking covering up of the crime scene. That's the date they were doing that, April 7th, Thursday. They're just trying to cover what they actually did.
Of what I'm talking about when I refer to evidence. The evidence that I've obtained in the indicators.
Mm-hmm. Would you like me to read that for you?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to take another page of Tom's notes here because his voice is failing. This is from Tom's own notes here. It says here, the evidence I've obtained and the indicators I've used to establish Kurt's death was a murder includes the following. 1, lack of police evidence that this was a suicide. 2, misleading and accurate information furnished by the police. Why would the police do that?
Because it's people like Tom Grant and Courtney.
Well, just to get off that subject for just half a second, if I can get this out, I do believe that initially the police made some honest mistakes. They had a missing persons report in their possession that said Kurt.
Exactly, and this was called in by Courtney on April 4th, Monday. And Tom isn't on that too, obviously. But he's just trying to bring suspicion onto himself, away from himself, which in hindsight, in turn, actually brings all the suspicion that's on Courtney really off of her, even though it's still on her. And people won't be able to figure out what actually happened in this murder and the cover-up.
Had left a rehab and bought a shotgun and maybe suicidal. I think that led them to believe that he left L.A. and bought the shotgun after he left L.A. And was looking to kill himself. So when they show up at the house and there's a dead body there and a shotgun wound to the head, I think conclusions were pretty easily reached, especially when there appears to be a suicide note on hand also. So I think...
Which Courtney brought there and left there. And she also is the other person that left the second note, which Cali tried to play up was him. He is covering right there for Courtney, and so is Tom.
Initially, the police made some honest mistakes and some honest assumptions. And then when they have a private investigator come along and question their work, they have to assume that I'm either a nut or that I'm trying to get attention for myself and publicity. And that if they start agreeing with me, of course, I'm going to run right to the media and say what a genius I am and what fools they are.
So essentially, since we know all of this and the attack, what happened to Kurt in the basement by Mark Lanigan and Dylan, and then on the 7th, Thursday, April 7th, Courtney's there, Tom's there, and he's probably sneaking around taking photos too. And that's why Callie's like, we should leave. There's a private investigator out there taking photos of people inside. That person in the red dress would have been Courtney. And she makes a point of walking around in a red dress a lot. Yeah, Courtney is part of those A-lister celebrities, Epstein crowd, and Kurt was the exact opposite. We needed his influence more than hers.
So I don't feel at that point they had much choice.
Let me read the rest of these. 3 inconsistencies, contradictions, and outright lies from Courtney and her friends. 4 stories planted in the press by Courtney and her friends that contain inaccurate and misleading information. 5, background information about the relationship between Courtney and Kurt that the public is unaware of. 6, motives for murder, which we talked about earlier. 7, psychological profiles. 8, witness statements. 9, examined documents. 10, information from confidential sources. 11, interrogation of suspects. 12, physical evidence. And 13, circumstantial evidence. Now, what is interesting about all of this, besides the fact that these are people who we know about and read about and hear about, and we hear their work all the time, is I can't, it's beyond belief. I mean, we're on the air in Seattle right now. I'm sure there are police officers listening, possibly people involved in the case. You have approached the police department. You have told them what you know. Isn't that true?
Yeah, that is true. Of course, I stopped.
Correction. He approached Don Cameron, who is in line with this cover-up, part of it, who got fired in, I believe, 1996 for stealing money from a crime scene. He is just like Tom Grant. And I can see that Don Cameron is a big part of the cover-up in that Soaked in Bleach movie now.
Talking to the police department after my meeting on April 14th, because I realized at that point from their reaction that no matter what I had to say, no one was going to listen to me. And I'm not going to continue giving them information just for them to discredit whatever I have.
And in addition, and this is something I think that's very important to point out, because we live in this world of hard copy and current affair and inside edition, all of the tabloid shows, you could make...
So it's 2 a.m. right here where I am, 2:09 a.m. in Toronto. So if Kurt would have returned home around this time again, after, he was there during the day getting high already, Cali probably would have called Courtney and told her. And then who shows up? Mark, Dylan, and a third individual. But that third individual would not have been Danny that night. If anything, Danny would have been on Thursday, April 7th, getting Courtney down to the house as well. And Tom took a separate flight.
A fortune selling this story. We know Inside Edition has been calling us for 2 days, begging us if they could bring a camera down here to show this. And I understand they also had conversations with you.
So what I was trying to say, though, is Kurt wouldn't have had much time after he got back home anyway, because he would have been attacked. And he did die at 2:32 a.m. Sunday when it was still dark out. So it was still dark out. It was nighttime still, but it was really morning time. 2:32 a.m. And Mark would have looked at his watch right then and just got a mental imprint of 2:32 a.m. Really, he had to set his fucking watch back, but knowing Mark, and most people don't do that right away. They realize, like, in the morning, oh shit, we have to turn this back. But he would have looked right at his watch. That's how he would have known 2:32 a.m. He couldn't not have a watch on him or something and not know what time it was. Or Dylan had a watch on him. And Dylan didn't set back his watch. That's awesome. Aberdeen, sorry.
Prior to talking to us. Now, you have not gotten a penny from us. We do not pay guests on this program. We just don't do business that way. Why would you spurn the potential for cash to come on a radio talk show and tell this story?
Well,
I wonder if they arranged Kurt's watch to say 2:32 a.m. or something like that. That would be weird. Should I look over the I'm going to look over the crime scene photos again to see if it looks like they maybe tampered with the crime scene like that. Kurt Cobain crime scene photos. Arm. Let's see. I need a really clear photo of it. I'm going to save it. And then I'm going to looks like it's around 10 a.m. or 7 a.m. on his 10 a.m. makes more sense since they're taking. Well, obviously, yeah, his watch was still working. It would only be stuck at 2:32 if it was not working anymore. So, yeah, it looks like around late 8 a.m. on the watch. So his watch is working. He didn't turn it around. So that would have been because they were there at like 9 in the morning, right? By the time they were taking the photos, the medical examiner that we seen walk up to the greenhouse. So that means he really was killed. Yeah, he was killed on Sunday. He didn't even have time to think about right from midnight to 2 a.m. to turn his watch around. Wow. And neither did Dylan or Mark, whoever seen 2:32 after they did what they did. 2:32 would have been imprinted in their mind when whoever had the watch looked at the watch and told the person what time it was. Mark or Dylan.
Well, my goal, first of all, is to bring out the truth in this case and bring the killers to justice. I consider what I'm doing right now as part of my investigation, part of the strategy that I'm using in this investigation. I have no problem with making money if I'm doing my job. If I'm wrong, I don't deserve a penny for this. In fact, I think I ought to be out of business if I'm wrong. This is a pretty heavy thing to lay on people and to accuse people of and take this kind of a risk.
No.
If I don't really know what I'm talking about. Of course, I have to pay bills. I have a lot of bills that I have to pay, and bills have been mounting. I think I mentioned to you at lunch, I turned down a homicide
Don't worry, Tom. Courtney will take care of that for you. You can turn down that homicide case.
investigation in Hawaii recently. That would have helped a lot, but I couldn't make that kind of a commitment being involved in what I'm doing right now.
Being paid by Courtney Love.
Eventually, I do need to work something out where I make some money while I'm doing this. But I have no problem with just paying my bills and giving the rest to charity or whatever else people want to do with money. My goal here is not to make as much money off of this as I can. My goal is to sustain.
Your goal is to cover up for Courtney and Cali and yourself and Mark and Dylan. And you're still doing that by laughing at Mark Lanigan and Dylan Carlson being involved in it.
In my business and bring a conclusion to this case. So initially, especially, of course, I'm not going to go out there and shop this thing around, excuse me, and try to make money off of it. And I don't care if I ever do.
Yeah, he got Mark and Dylan heroin on April 7th as well. There was no need for that because Kurt was already dead. He just basically bought them heroin and was covering up for why he did that for them. Because that was Thursday, April 7th. Kurt was already dead. They knew that. Dylan was in the greenhouse with Courtney. He admitted that to Maureen Herman from Babes in Toyland.
I want to make a living, but my priority here is to conclude this case and bring the people to justice.
You understand that when I told somebody about this, we only have about 30 seconds, but you understand when I told somebody about this show.
Right, his throat chakra is giving him away. And this was recorded in 1994 too, the same year.
Today they said, oh yeah, right, and Elvis sightings and space aliens, it just sounds like another tabloid story.
Yeah. Well, I've realized from the beginning, in fact, before I even went to the police, I'm the world's biggest skeptic myself. I don't like hearing crazy stories. I don't read the tabloids, and I just don't like hearing stuff like that.
Oh, you hear that? We can trust him. No, we can't.
So I knew what I was up against. I'm up against a world of people like myself.
Our guest, private investigator Tom Grant of Beverly Hills. Your telephone calls still to come at 1-800-5800-TOM.
You're listening to the
Skipping these.
February 28th, and the trip Eugene is not valid on February.
We have less than a minute. Hello.
Hi, I just wanted to ask him if he was afraid for his life now that he's come out with this.
Well, I don't fear for my life. I'm concerned, of course, and I realize what the potential is here. And when I walk,
Yeah. If you fuck up on, not covering it up really good for Courtney and Cali and Dylan and Mark and yourself.
Out my door, I look both ways. I have people with me. I have a bodyguard from time to time, but I don't allow people to intimidate me in that way.
Yeah, this is interesting. I believe you actually. So just
You believe the story?
Yeah, I do.
Mm-hmm.
I do because I just.
And you should, that he was murdered, but don't believe Tom's spinning of everything. He's part of the staging in the greenhouse with Courtney herself, and Mark and Dylan and Cali.
I have known people in my life.
Actually, Cali, maybe for a little bit, but then Cali and Joe and Bonnie and Jennifer all left the house in a vehicle, and they went to Jimmy Boyle's. Apparently stayed at some other place too, like Jennifer's, I believe. Her parents or something.
Like, what's the name? Courtney Love. I have known girls like that, and so I can find this really believable.
So you believe that Courtney Love could have been behind the murder of Kurt Cobain?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Angie.
Okay.
She is behind the murder, and she is also behind the cover-up. Soaked in Bleach and Montage of Heck are both a cover-up movie, and it's ironic that they came out around the same year, isn't it? Now that we think back.
I appreciate the call. Our guest, private investigator Tom Grant of Beverly Hills, California. And, of course, we're taking telephone calls for him, toll-free at...
Soaked in Bleach and Montage of Heck was like a double whammy to Kurt. An insult of so.
1-800-5800-TOM. He says Kurt Cobain did not commit suicide.
The Tom Likas Show.
Good afternoon. This is Karen Anderson with the Cairo FM traffic update. Northbound I-5 is slow from 145th into Snohomish County, and southbound I-5 is very slow approaching Spokane Street, and north and southbound 405 are slow through the S-curves as always. As far as the weather, mostly clear, lows 20 to 30 degrees though. Partly sunny tomorrow after some morning fog. Highs tomorrow in the mid-40s. Clouds tomorrow night, and Saturday mostly cloudy with a chance of rain. Highs Saturday.
Yeah, he's not worried about Courtney. He's concerned, though, if he doesn't do a good job at covering it up, then he has a right to be worried.
Saturday in the mid-40s. Cairo News Time is 5 o'clock. This is KIRO FM, Seattle.
CBS News, this is Doug Poling. Lots of talk in Washington about reconciliation and working together. There's even word of an olive branch from Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, montage of heck is BS, and so is Soaked in Bleach, in the way that they are spinning it, Tom and the rest of the killers.
Newt Gingrich. A White House source tells CBS News the First Lady has written to the House Speaker following an unflattering remark Gingrich's mother says her son made about Mrs. Clinton. According to the source, Mrs. Clinton writes that she understands how
I have to skip this just a sec.
These things can sometimes happen. From David Dow in Los Angeles. Their pretrial victim.
Sorry for coughing.
Vocabulary is limited. Leek brand garlic from Myers resigned last month. In fuel and maintenance.
From the Cairo FM traffic.
I am your host. Write down this toll. Kurt Cobain of Nirvana did not commit suicide. He believes that Kurt Cobain was murdered. And he believes that Kurt Cobain was murdered as a result of a conspiracy by Kurt Cobain's widow, Courtney Love, and their nanny, Michael DeWitt.
And Tom Grant, and Mark Lanigan, and Dylan Carlson, and Eric Erlinson, possibly.
And he says he's got all kinds of evidence, some of which he is sharing with us today, some of which is just his opinion, and some of it is, his wish, he says, to get the case reopened. The Seattle Police Department have declared that this is suicide. Many people are skeptical of the story from what I'm hearing in the control room. I must tell you, though, that I am not taking a stand one way or the other here. We're giving Tom a forum to state his case. I will tell you he was employed by Courtney Love as a private investigator. It is the reason we went to lunch with Tom a couple of weeks ago and spent a couple of hours with him and looked at what he had to show. All we're doing here is giving him an opportunity, a platform to state his case. You can accept it or not accept it. We're not taking a position on it one way or the other. If you've got some comments or questions for Tom, our toll-free telephone number from across North America is 1-800-5800-TOM. 1-800-5800-866. Originally, Tom says he was engaged by Courtney Love to find out about unauthorized use on Kurt Cobain's credit card. Whatever happened with that, Tom? Whatever happened with the credit card?
Well, we still don't know. We don't know who was using the credit card, but we know that there had been attempts made consistently since the time Courtney hired us until well after Kurt had died, that someone was attempting to still use the credit card. The last attempt that we knew of was somewhere between 1 a.m. and 8 a.m. in the morning on Friday the 8th the morning.
Mark Lanigan is known for stealing people's credit cards. He said that in his book, Sing Backwards and Weep.
That Kurt's body was found. One of the reasons for a little bit of inaccuracy in those records is that the computers that the credit card company have don't keep that accurate information on a card that's been canceled. But we do know that there was an attempt made during that period of time.
We don't know who tried to use it, though.
No, to my knowledge, to my knowledge, unless the police have some information that they haven't disclosed, no one to this day knows who was using that credit card. But it was the same credit card that Kurt had used to purchase the ticket to fly to Seattle from Los Angeles.
So what is the significance of the use of the credit card versus what you are alleging here today?
Well, of course, the credit card was never found in Kurt's possession also when the body was discovered. And it seems apparent that whoever was using that credit card more than likely had knowledge of Kurt's death before the body was discovered.
Our telephone number toll free, 1-800-5800-TOM. Let us go to your calls. Evelyn in Seattle, you're on the Tom Leykis Show. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
I have a question for you about the ballistics for the rifle. It's because if they say he committed suicide with the rifle, because actually I heard two different stories. I heard one, the rifle was next to him, and another one I heard it was on him. And it's like, which actually was it?
The shotgun was laying between his legs with the barrel somewhere between his belt line and his chest, and with the butt of the shotgun between his legs.
Yeah, well, what?
And Tom would know that because he's seen it up close on April 7th, Thursday, the day before the body was discovered, was set to be discovered by Gary Smith, the electrician.
If you were to shoot a rifle, if you've ever shot one before, you get the backfire. Wouldn't it have been like clear across the room?
That's a possibility. We're doing a lot of checking on that and experimenting with that model shotgun. There's a lot of work still to be done in that area. My information, by the way, I want to make it clear, has nothing to do with the coroner's report or any of the evidence that the police found at the scene. It may seem strange that I could reach my conclusions without knowing some of that information contained in the coroner's report. But what I can
Yeah, it does.
say, no matter what
Because he has a narrative already with Courtney and the rest of them.
the coroner comes up with, no one is going to be able to prove that somebody could not have been there holding that.
Again, this interview with Tom Grant took place in 1994.
Shotgun and discharging it with Kurt's hands on the trigger while he was unconscious. I don't care what the coroner's report says. It's not, excuse me. I don't care what the coroner's report says. It will not be able to prove that that's impossible.
Thank you, Evelyn, for the call.
On Thursday, April 7th, it would have been possibly Daniel Clint Rich, Tom Grant, Courtney Love, possibly Eric Erlandson, and in Seattle, of course, with them. When they arrived at the house, it would have been Mark, Dylan, and Cali, and Joe and Bonnie and Jennifer. That was the night that they left. And they seen the red dress, the person in the red dress in the greenhouse. As well as Jessica left sometime.
1-800-5800-TOM. Let's say hello to Deborah in La Mirada, California. Deborah, you're on the Tom Leykis Show with private investigator Tom Grant. Hello.
Hi, Tom.
Hi.
Great to talk to you. I'm so glad you're back on in LA. I'm a big fan of yours.
Thank you.
Okay, my question for the investigator, Tom, is basically it sounds like he's very convinced that Courtney and the nanny conspired for the death, but I haven't heard any compelling information. I was wondering if he's gonna tell us some more stuff that he uncovered, because it just sounds like a bunch of facts that say, oh yeah, maybe she could have done it, but I haven't heard anything that makes me say, oh, definitely. I wondered if you're going to go on with your story, or if your voice is keeping you from.
Right. Well, my voice is certainly a big part of this. That's hindering this whole thing. But
yeah.
From the beginning, of course, telling this story and what's occurred in the last 8 months has been one of the most difficult jobs, to sit down and tell somebody this.
I want to go over Crazy Love by Neil Lowe, where he is exposing Tom Grant's involvement in it as well. That is really important. He was actually one of the detectives on the case. So, and this Kim woman in this fictional novel about the actual cover-up is Courtney Love, the woman named Kim in this book. A second. It does not want to play.
Locked him out for now, but we'd like to talk to him one more time, before he wanders off into the great unknown.
Just a second.
Burrs off into the great unknown. Quote dot. Just as T as well, said Kim. Guy's a no talent, career freeloader. He's a sponge and will never amount to anything. Quote dot. We're concerned that Justine's apartment might have been cleaned out before we got there, said Barnett.
A second, let me go down.
After driving in silence, Captain Tanner parked in the Starbucks lot on Madison Avenue and shut off the engine. He glanced over at Barnett and then to Dixon in the backseat, sharing a doubtful scowl. Let's take a table outside so we can stay away from our well-meaning, tax-paying eavesdroppers. He said, I'm buying the Java, what'll you have? Quote dot. Barnett really didn't want another...
Okay, that sucks. We're not going with that. I guess we're sticking with the Tom Grant interview from 1994.
Difficult jobs to sit down and tell somebody the story while they roll their eyes in disbelief without knowing all the details and all the things that have happened in the last 8 months is extremely difficult. What I have found is when I sat down with people, including other investigators and other individuals, and I've gone through this from beginning to end, it tends to it tends to be easier than this is, I'll tell you.
I know. The radio breaks and stuff, I'm sure.
Yeah, and what I'm hoping to have happen is to see some of this information in print, where a lot of the details can be laid out a lot more extensively than on radio or television or anything else.
Yeah.
That's why I've avoided going on television shows right now, because there's no way it could do justice to the facts and details of this case.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming forward, and I hope you'll be able to tell us more of the story, because it does, I mean, it does make me wonder, you know?
Yeah, no, you'll be hearing a lot more. Like I said, there'll always be some information that I'm going to withhold until I can see that this case is being handled properly. But I think you'll be surprised at how much,
And Joe wouldn't, no, with the photos being taken, Tom would have them, yeah. But I can see Joe just being like, bring it. Like, Tom Grant was part of this. He was part of the staging on the 7th. And Joe might not want to admit that. But I see it. I see it myself.
Information.
I can hear you. How much information?
Yeah, how much information that I will be putting out.
Yeah, well, you sound pretty sure that, I mean, you sound very convinced, and you said you were skeptical, so I'm sure you have a lot, and I hope that we'll be able to get more of it from you today. Hope your voice holds out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate the call. 1-800-5800-TOM is our telephone number. Dan in Seattle, you're on the Tom Leykis Show with Tom Grant. Hello.
Hi, Tom. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
Mr. Grant?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a couple questions for you. I used to work for the funeral home that Mr. Cobain's body went to. I'm the embalmer who performed all the reconstructive work on Mr. Cobain. And I wanted to speak.
He just wants to say that it looks like it was a suicide.
A footnote to Francis and Courtney at the bottom, and then there's a questionable line at the bottom that I believe was added by somebody else. I believe in the December 15th issue of Rolling Stone, This is fun. In the December 15th issue of Rolling Stone, Courtney alludes to another note that she now claims that she has, now that this note has started to be questioned. And she quotes from that note. And personally, I think she probably does have another note. I think Kurt did write her a note, and he wrote his fans a note. And even based on the quotes that she says in Rolling Stone, Kurt is leaving. He's leaving. He doesn't want her to follow. He says, I'll be there to protect you.
He would have known that Courtney had another note from Kurt.
Et cetera, et cetera.
For sure.
He's not in his frame of mind, I believe he was being benevolent. He was trying to be loving.
Yes, it's live and legit.
But he wanted to get out of Seattle.
Not Tom Grant speaking, though. This is from 1994.
He wanted to be left alone, and that's all that he wanted.
What do you think?
Well, that's believable. It did sound like a suicide letter, but the way that you're putting it, it could have been just a goodbye letter.
Yeah, certainly if you believe that it was a suicide, it could sound like a suicide note. When you even bring this down to a level playing field and consider the possibility that it's not, and then you take into consideration all the information that we have about what was going on with Kurt and the fact that he did want to stop touring and performing, and then you read this letter again, you notice that there's nothing suicidal in here. The only thing that even comes close to hinting at suicide is the last line, which I believe is obvious, was added later. The width of the lines appear to be thinner than the rest of the note. It's not consistent with the rest of the note. And it says, which will be so much happier without me. I think even with the naked eye, it appears that line was added on.
Now, when we had lunch, Tom, you told me something that I found really interesting. We all remember the vigil in Seattle where we heard Courtney reading this note to the people there. If I recall, it was a tape of Courtney reading the note. And what you told me was that...
Yeah, especially since he was divorcing Courtney and all that emotional stress and, conflict.
Some of the lines in the note are written one way, but they were actually spoken by Courtney Love to change some of the tenses, or some of them were read incorrect. What was that all about?
Yeah, Courtney appears to be putting her own spin on this note. There's a line that says, I have it good, very good.
And that wasn't in the letter, yes. And he's calling this out, okay. But he's also covering up so much.
In an interview with Kurt Lauder, Courtney quoted Cobain's final missive, "It's not fun anymore. I can't live this life." First of all, that line is not in the suicide note. Nowhere does he say, I can't live this life. In Circus magazine, there's an article that says, the note as read by Courtney Love.
I'll tell you what, why don't we take a break here? We'll give you a chance to recoup. And I want to go over the suicide note question. Christy, I thank you for the call. We are talking with private investigator Tom Grant of Beverly Hills, California. He had been engaged by Courtney Love to find Kurt Cobain, who was missing prior to his untimely death. But Mr. Grant says that Kurt Cobain did not commit suicide. He says, that Kurt Cobain was murdered, and he believes that other sinister forces are at work.
The Tom Likas Show.
Good afternoon. I'm Karen Anderson with a Cairo FM update. Opponents of the upcoming Seattle schools levy accuse the district of illegally trying to influence the outcome of the election. In a formal complaint filed...
How your family...
Rules that everyone should be familiar with. Collect. Here's how it works. Operator dialed interstate.
If your money at KFC, guaranteed. Okay, maybe not.
Wouldn't it be great if I got the news to fit my schedule?
Certainly.
Yes, not long after Kurt Cobain's alleged suicide, Christina Saff, the bassist for Courtney Love's band Hole, was found dead in her apartment of a heroin overdose, according to police. Now, considering this particular...
Yeah, I can't live this life of touring all the time, going from place to place, plane ride all the time. Like, oh my gosh, just a second.
Her death took place a short time after Kurt's death. Do you think that her overdose may be suspicious as well?
Yeah, I'm very suspicious of it, but I'm going to let others deal with that. I'll just tell you what I know from reading, and my information is strictly based on reading when it comes to Kristen Path. I read that she was prepared to leave Seattle the next morning for home, and that she was anxious to get out of Seattle, that she didn't like it there.
And of course, pages of her journal were ripped out, most likely by Courtney, the very week of Kurt Cobain dying.
It seems strange to me that she died the night before she was leaving, just as Kurt died when he was leaving Seattle also. And I could go on and on. I have strong suspicions, but I'm not going to make any claims. That's for other people to look into. I believe I know what happened to Kurt, and I'd like people to look into what happened to Kristen.
Thank you, John, for the call. Now, we were talking about this.
And I think it was a different girl, like Joe said, who had blonde hair that Kurt was secretly seeing. But Kristen definitely knew and got suspicious about whatever was happening. And she probably knew a lot, even about Mark Lanigan. That's probably what was ripped out of her journal that was at the crime scene.
Suicide note, and some of the differences that you said existed between the note.
And Kristen was close to Courtney because she was in Courtney's band called Hole back in the day.
And what Courtney Love said was in the note.
Yeah, in Circus Magazine, June 30th issue, the note is read by Courtney Love. I had a good marriage, and for that I'm grateful. The line in the actual note says, "I have it good, very good." Then on MTV, when I watched MTV and Courtney was reading the note again, she said, "I had it good," instead of "I have it good." Now, these are little subtleties that I believe that Courtney uses to her advantage.
Again, Tom is pointing out information that matters, that points out things that point out Courtney's suspicion, but he's also covering for other things as well. Working as a fixer, a handler of this case. There's no way all these junky people that killed Kurt could get away with it if it wasn't for having one smart individual to help them, with Courtney, of course, who is also really smart, unfortunately.
Managed to paint the picture of Kurt being suicidal. And I want to point out also that some of these things that I'm reading and that I've picked up on, I don't know, if I talked to the guy that wrote this article in Circus Magazine, he'd say, "Oh no, I misquoted that." I don't consider these things as evidence. The things that...
That's the thing. Tom didn't turn on Courtney at all. Tom's working with Courtney to make it seem like he's trying to discover what happened and who did it. But he's putting out misinformation for Courtney and working with her still to do that. And so people think, oh, he's turned against her. But really, they're working together to make it seem like they're trying to find out what happened. So no real investigation will actually happen. And people think that, some people are taking care of this. What they're really doing is taking care of the staging of the crime. The same people that staged the crime scene in the greenhouse on the 7th, after Kurt's body was already in there since the 3rd, like with the letter, are the same people staging the cover-up now. So we think they're against each other, but they're not. That's how they're playing all of us, and that's why this hasn't been solved for 32 years.
I'm reading to you a lot of the inconsistencies. I don't consider that evidence. I think some of those things are going to be explained eventually. I believe it'll be explained eventually, some of these minor details.
And Tom, even in his own case manual study, he flew down to Seattle on Thursday, April 7th, and that's the same date that Dylan gave to Maureen Herman of Babes in Toyland that he was with Courtney in the greenhouse. And that's the same date that Soaked in Bleach starts out with Mark and Tom and Dylan together in the car. Mark should have been in that scene as well, but Tom is obviously covering that stuff up, but he's making himself look good in certain areas of exposing certain things. So that is Courtney making herself look good in certain areas as well.
But looking at the overall picture and keep in mind, in this 2-hour program, you're getting a very, very small taste of all the information that I've put together and all the information that I'm continuing to put together.
Gary in Sacramento, you're on the Tom Likas Show with private investigator Tom Grant. Hello.
Hello, Tom. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Great show.
So what happened to Kurt was he was attacked in the basement by Mark Lanigan, and Dylan Carlson was there. He was helping too. It was mainly Mark Lanigan, and then Kurt's body was dragged out of the house through the basement door, upstairs, and out into the greenhouse, and he was shot through his hard palate at 2:32 a.m. on Sunday morning, early Sunday morning. And then Thursday, April 7th, Tom Grant, Courtney, possibly Eric show up, and they're staging more of the crime scene in the greenhouse. This is when Courtney Love is in a red dress, and this is when Joe and Bonnie and Jennifer and Cali are all leaving and getting the fuck out of there. After there's, a private investigator taking photos around the place. That's Tom on that same night. On Thursday, April 7th, not April 3rd when Kurt died. They're there days later, like 3 days later, making sure the crime scene is staged in a good way before the media is set to pick up on it the next day, because the electrician, Gary Smith, who Courtney called in to go work on the house in the greenhouse, was set to find the body. They knew he would find it.
I wanted to ask Mr. Grant, he said that the last two...
I also want to include in that they tried to get him, Courtney tried to get the electrician to go there on Tuesday. She called the day after the murder to try to get him to go Tuesday, but he wasn't able to show up. So they knew they had another day to stage that crime scene, and that's what they did on April 7th.
Years of Kurt's life were two of his happiest, and yet 3 months before, or a couple months before he died, he nearly killed himself on an overdose of pills.
And by the way, the cover-up, I'm just going to speak about this a bit. The cover-up is happening right now still with Tom Grant and Courtney and Dylan and Cali. The same people that staged the crime scene in the greenhouse, and then Cali left that same night too. They all got the fuck out of there with Joe and Bonnie and Jennifer. That is exactly what happened. And just before that, Kurt went to a rehab. He bought a shotgun. Somebody put the shells in his bag, I believe. I believe that was Dylan, who Harvey said to me that he seen smoking a cigarette in front of the house when Harvey was waiting in the limousine for Kurt. It's like he was being delayed or something, and he almost missed his flight because of being delayed in the house and because of the shells in his bag, which he was really shocked to see were in there. It was like someone planted them on him. He probably thought about that during the plane ride there, that probably somebody planted those on me. They almost fucked up my ride here, my plane trip. So he did buy a gun. Unfortunately, he didn't have it when he returned back home from LA. He didn't have it on him in that moment, unfortunately, at 2 a.m, sometime at 2 a.m, because he had just returned, right? So it would make sense if he didn't have it on him right then. It probably was in the greenhouse. If he was up there before, which it seems like he definitely was, and Joe says he was. So Kurt flies to rehab. That is March 30th. and he leaves Exodus Rehab from LA to Seattle on Good Friday. What do they call that day? It's Friday, where it's like it's a joke day. I forget it. But he leaves on the 1st of April. And it crosses over into the 2nd, the Saturday. At around 2 in the morning, or 1 in the morning. Late at 1 in the morning, probably. From what I'm remembering. Then he's hanging out there for a bit. He has a meal with Joe. He goes a separate way. Kind of hides out, does whatever. And then sometime during Saturday, during the daytime now, the PM hours, or AM, PM, when it's bright out, Kurt's out and about in Seattle. Courtney cancels the cards that day, April 2nd, Saturday. Kurt comes back to the home either late Saturday night or early into Sunday morning. After he had already been around the house during the day as well, getting high with Joe. So he probably left during the PM hours, thinking that Harvey would return the bullets. So he didn't even need to go out and buy more bullets. But Cali and the rest of them would have realized there's no bullets and they would have needed to get some. Or Kurt did actually get the bullets. And that's why he loaded them with less BBs. That would make more sense. Unless yeah, that makes more sense. And this is, so he goes out sometime in the evening after getting high with Joe and Bonnie and Cali. He comes back, the credit cards have been canceled. Even though he had money in his pockets, he still comes back. Maybe that wasn't the exact reason why he came back, but he came back late that Saturday night going into early Sunday morning. I'm imagining more early Sunday morning, and probably had a meal with Kurt maybe right then, with Joe, I mean, right then too. Another Marie Callender's dinner, the breaded chicken one with the vegetables, since they had plenty of them, just like Jessica said, and Pop-Tarts, because Cali would load up on those. That's from Nirvana, the autobiography. So that means he didn't have a Pop-Tart, but he did have another Marie Callender's meal. And then he goes down to the basement. He's already high. And sometime right then, I bet it was Cali who called Courtney and told her that Kurt was back at the house finally, because that's what Courtney wanted Cali to do. Cali will tell me if Courtney shows up. Cali will tell me if Kurt shows up. That's a direct quote from Courtney. And he did. So Cali did. Cali would have been the informant in the house. And once he did that, Courtney would have contacted Mark Lanigan and Dylan, and the third individual wouldn't have been Danny that day. If Danny's involved, that would have been on Thursday, April 7th, to get Courtney down there on the plane when Tom took its separate flight. Based on Dylan talking to Maureen Herman of Babes in Toyland and admitting to her that Courtney and him were in the greenhouse. Courtney and Dylan were in the greenhouse on Thursday, April 7th, a day before the body was discovered. So he was attacked He's in the basement. Those three individuals show up. Not Danny, but Mark Lanigan and Dylan and that third individual. April Fool's Day, yeah. But when they show up on Sunday, April 3rd, in the early AM, around 2 a.m., that's when things start to get heated. They start sneaking around looking for Kurt. So it's not that private investigators are sneaking around looking for Kurt on the 3rd of Sunday. Tom Grant is sneaking around on Thursday, April 7th, taking photos of people like Joe in Cali, is trying to get them to all leave. And so Joe and Bonnie and Jennifer and Cali all take out of there. But before they take out, they see that would have been Courtney Love in the red dress, not Mark Lanigan. I know the book says Mark Lanigan, but I believe with most certainty it was definitely Courtney Love. Look at photos of Courtney Love from behind too. She looks exactly like Kurt Cobain. And that's the same date that Dylan ratted on himself for being in the greenhouse with Courtney Love. Thursday, April 7th, before the body was found on Friday, April 8th. So there we have it. But yeah, more about the attack. Sunday, early in the morning, they're getting into an argument and a scuffle. They're trying to, Mark Lanigan and Dylan are trying to get Kurt to do more heroin in the greenhouse, away from the people in the basement and the house entirely. But Kurt kept refusing, and an argument and yelling and a scuffle happened. And Kurt was hit in the head with something by Mark Lanigan, and then forcefully injected heroin by Mark and Dylan. And somehow they covered up the head injury that Joe's talking about that happened to Kurt. I imagine that would probably be from the shotgun wound, because his forehead was caved in at parts, and it was all bumpy. And I imagine there would be bruising. And of course, there would be blood, even if the skin isn't broken. So that could easily be covered up with that. Maybe that's why they forced it in his mouth at that direction, so it would cave in the part of his forehead too. But that happened. They hit him in the head. They injected him. Dylan and Mark Lanigan were seen carrying Kurt out of the greenhouse. Joe said to me with Chris Todd on a video chat that if they let go of Kurt, he would have just dropped to the ground. So he was unconscious for sure, just like the autopsy confirms from the heroin that was recently right then injected into him that early Sunday morning around 2 a.m. Possibly like 2:20 a.m. because they move him to the greenhouse and they shoot him and kill him at 2:32 a.m. on Sunday, April 3rd. Mark Lanigan does. And then it's done. And then Mark and Dylan and this third individual are still in the house. They go back in the house. I don't know where that third individual was at that time. I imagine he was with them in the greenhouse, but they all go back in the house. And Joe acts innocent. He's like, hey, where's Kurt? And Dylan walks up to him and it looks like a pale ghost and is like kind of like, he looks like that. He looks like he's in shock and he's just saying, you don't want any part in this. Just go home, get out of here. But he stays there. And then later, shortly after, he finds an excuse to go outside and have a smoke, and that's when he hears the gunshot. Then he gets the fuck out of there and goes back inside the house. He was outside and he goes back in the house after hearing it. And Bonnie may have heard it too. They may have talked about it. But then they stayed in the house for 3 or 4 days. On the 7th, they're leaving. That's when Tom was snooping around taking photos outside at night. And Cali was warning Joe about that, and Bonnie and Jennifer probably as well. And that's when they got out of the house and left for good. They left before, but they came back. But that was when they left for good, when Tom Grant was creeping around the creeper, taking photographs. He is actually the person that was what Danny was being blamed for. But Danny, if Danny was involved, it was just getting Courtney there on April 7th before the body would be found, before they knew it would be found. And then the staging of the crime scene happened by Mark, Dylan, Tom, Courtney, possibly Eric Erlandson, and possibly Cali on that day as well. Maybe not, because Cali and Joe and Bonnie and Jennifer all left. I don't know where Jessica was at that time. Joe doesn't. And that's why I don't. And that's what happened. And now Tom Grant is still working with Courtney Love even after the murder. Not just one day after, not just 2 days after, but still to this day. And he's putting out information that does matter, that catches Courtney and lies and everything. But then he's covering for things that would actually nail her and put her away in prison. Courtney's using sketchy private investigators to do her work. That's what's happening. So there it all is. And we have to face the misinformation and disinformation from Courtney coming from Tom Grant and Courtney herself. And they're just going to laugh at everything I just said and try to get everyone to dismiss it so that they can keep getting away with all this for another 32 years. But I say good luck to them because it's all known now. All the puzzle pieces have been put together here. And people are saving this live stream as well as my other ones. So it's getting out there, regardless of who wants to cover it up or be on YouTube as a face for the Cobain case, but stay away from actually talking about what actually happened to Kurt. The shit that people actually want to fucking know. And who did it. Despite them being around too. This information is going to get out, and it's going to stay out there. Even if I get killed myself, it's still going to be out there. I'm in more danger than Todd Grant is. Well, Todd Grant is too, because he's covering for Courtney and not doing a good job. And Dylan. And Cali. And Mark. It's been a good 32 years of a cover-up. That's for sure. There's a lot of kids and adults that took their own lives too. Tom, Courtney, Cali, Dylan. Holy fucking shit. I happen to make a lot of dumb decisions in my life and choices. So I'm actually pretty amazed at myself for figuring all this out in a way that actually makes sense and puts all the pieces together correctly. Now we just have to keep putting out this information. And I'm going to put this video into like Chat GPT or something and tell it to list out all the points I put in this video. And then we're just going to keep putting these things out there. In articles, even if we have to do it on our own websites, in hopes that Meta AI and Gemini and all that AI stuff will pick up what we're putting out there. We're not going to let them cover it up. We're not going to let them kill people and cover it up. We're just going to get the information out there repeatedly. So I'm going to stop this live stream and wait to save it and get all that done and keep putting out this information nonstop. And I hope you do as well. I'm going to end this now. Good night, everybody. I'm going to do that as soon as this saves. I will see you later.